Today's episode is brought to you by Omio. Omio is a travel booking platform that makes planning a journey in Europe and North America effortless. Just enter your travel details and Omio will magically give you all the train, bus, flight, and ferry options for your journey. It's never been simpler to book your first real vacation for 2021. Best of all, using Omio saves you time and money. That's a win-win in our books. Omio wants to help you leave your house this summer by offering 5% off your next booking. Just head to omio.com and use the code OMIO5 at checkout. Valid until July 31st for new users on all modes of transport. It's just the pick-me-up 2021 needs. Omio. Plan, book, and love the journey. Terms and conditions apply.
Heard the rest. Now here's the best. Stay Tuned Sports Podcast.
And hello there, all you Stay Tuners. Welcome back to a new episode of Stay Tuned Sports. It's your good friend Jimbo back after a week off. You know, just needed a little break there, especially with all this heat going on, and just made me tired. It's hard to focus on some of these stories that have happened the past 2 weeks. That we're going to touch on a little bit today. But before we get into the show, make sure you head over to staytunedsports.net. And on our right-hand side, there's all of our social media accounts, our Twitter, our Facebook, especially our Twitter one, because, you know, bare knuckle boxing, UFC, you'll find me over there tweeting about, especially with last week's BKFC 19 pay-per-view. The circus that was kind of going on in the very beginning of the pay-per-view was quite interesting, to say the least. But and then up top there is our merchandise tab, so you can find any hoodies or t-shirts that you may want to purchase to help support the show. And you know what? Another way to help support the show is if you head over to www.buymeacoffee.com/stsports and make a little donation. You know, that way you don't have to. If you don't want to spend $20 on a nice, awesome-looking Stay Tuned Sports T-shirt and just want to give me $1, you buy me a beer, and that's how it is on there. We've had a couple fans by us, support us as far as like Scott Crump from the Erskine League and Ben Adams from the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series that runs Friday night, which we will be talking about in a few seconds here. But and don't forget, we did unveil a couple weeks ago that we do have our mailbag that you guys could call with questions or comments. And in case you guys want to do that, the number is 612-STS-CHAT. I mean, can't get that much easier. You know, it's Stay Tuned Sports abbreviated and then chat, you know. And if you don't know what STS chat the numbers are, it's 612-787-2428. And who knows, maybe you'll be on the show. I'll give you a shout out and we'll go from there. You know, it's good times. Speaking of good times, this past Friday was the first race in the chase for the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series Championship, and the boys were at Daytona this past week, and surprisingly, early on was very clean racing. You know, no cautions. And one other surprising thing too was out of the 10 chase drivers, Mitchell Adams, who has won back-to-back seasons, did not race this past week. So that really put him behind the 8 ball for this the rest of the season if he races. I believe he's supposed to be racing this week. I'm not sure what happened last week and why he was not able to race. But there was a butt kicker challenge. Jason Gracias won the pole. Actually had a very good race. You know, like I say, he took the butt kicker challenge, but unfortunately, he did not win the race. So he did not win the butt kicker challenge. Some things that kind of threw me off in the very beginning. I forgot James Lorello had a drive-through penalty, so he qualified high, and then after the first lap, he had to drive through the pits as part of a penalty from the week before. And I really thought that that was going to put him behind the 8 ball again. But he actually finished very well. Was up front there with his partner, Ben Izinga, and came in, I believe it was like 3rd place he came in. But the winner actually was Ben Mashburn, who all year has been right there, almost, to win a race, and then just bad luck, whether it be a wreck that, swooped him up in there or something like that. But was able to pull it off. And, needless to say, actually, he did almost get swept up in another wreck at the end there. There was two laps left to go. And, it took the majority of the field out. And another little side note about James Lorello coming in 3rd, he was the only chase driver to finish in the top 10. Like I said, that big wreck on lap 2 took everybody out. But there was some drama that happened throughout the race, and this one was quite interesting. A little bit of drama on pit road. It seemed like a lot of the drama happened on pit road, with people either just spinning out, coming out of the pit road. But this one in particular incident involved Ben Izinga and Ben Mashburn, who, like I said, won the race. Izinga was trying to get into his pit box, and which he was in the fast lane. Ben Mashburn was leaving the pits, so he was in the slower lane, and Izinga, turned down to get into his pit box, and was just, kind of spun out by Mashburn, which a lot of the cars were coming down or leaving, right behind them, and caused a lot of the guys to check up, which in turn collected, like I said, Izinga was part of it, Matt Cherry and JT Poole, who all were chase drivers. Now, if you look at it, there was obviously probably a lot of finger pointing going on inside their chat and things like that. I know I joke around with the guys that I'm gonna hopefully get into iRacing, so maybe I have a lot to learn as far as the etiquettes of what's right and what's wrong. But from what I saw, I thought, Ben Mashburn, who was driving slow and leaving the pits, should have slowed up, or at least, speed up a little bit to get past Izinga, and Izinga slowed up. Maybe a little bit of fault on both ends of the party here, but it just big wreck right there, and definitely had implications on the rest of the race, I believe. Even though Ben ended up winning the race, Izinga ended up getting collected up, I think, in that last wreck that I talked about with 2 laps to go. But there was really only like 3 or 4 cautions, and the 2 big ones that, obviously at Daytona you talk about, the big wreck, happened with 6 to go and 2 to go. And really, the one with 6 laps to go pretty much looked like netcode, which, iRacing basically assumes where the 2 trucks are going to be or are, and sometimes they're not there or did not end up being there, and they end up wrecking. But those were the only 2 big wrecks that happened. Like I said, the last one took out the majority. Lorello was able to get through it and is still in the lead by, I believe, a point right now, for the championship. Now, even though we are in the chase for the championship, all season I gave my 3 racers to watch for that race. Well, pretty much the rest of the season now, I'm just going to give my 3 racers to watch for the chase. Who do I think is going to do good this upcoming weekend? Obviously, the first one I'm going to pick is Mitchell Adams. Like I said, he missed last week, and he has a lot of ground to make up. He's 28 points back behind James Lorello, but as a racer that is a back-to-back champion, you can't really ever count anything out. You know, he's obviously a very good racer that is able to win back-to-back championships, so he's no lucky driver. Like, he knows what he's doing. Another racer is Andrew Himmelman. He's only 1 point behind James, like I said earlier. Had a really good race at Daytona, but got caught up in a couple of wrecks, and I believe that last one with 2 to go took him out. I forget where exactly he finished, but he was up there right before it happened, and he's been strong all year, especially the second half of the season. Seemed like he really came on strong, even like last year, but only being 1 point behind, all it takes is for James to slip up one little time, and Andrew will be right there to pounce. The last one is Matt Cherry. He snuck into the chase this past week or so by just being consistent, and like that's why like Scott Crump I'll talk to on the side from Erska, and even last season I think he only had like 1 or 2 wins on the season. He was worried about the chase, and just watching, as long as you're consistent with top 10 finishes, you'll be there in the end. And that's what Matt Cherry did these last few races. Last 4 out of 5 races, he finished in the top 10. And now he's only 5 points back behind Lorello. And that's an accomplishment, to bring up, because he's above Mitchell Adams, who, like I said, is the reigning champion. So they're my 3 racers to watch this upcoming race, which they're at Kansas. And after this one, it gets dropped down to 7. So 3 racers are on the bubble, which are Ben Adams, Chris Darling, and Mitchell Adams. And I bring up Ben Adams, and we just find out today that unfortunately he will not be making this race. So it looks like he may be out of the chase this season. The only other thing I want to bring up about the NSRA League and the Stay Tuned Sports podcast truck series, if there's any drivers out there looking to join a league, or sponsors that want to sponsor a series or races, head over to NSRA League's Facebook page and make sure you give them a message. They'll help you out. They're very good guys. Any questions you have, they'll definitely answer. So the story that we're going to talk about actually came out last week, and I was actually kind of excited to talk about this. And it's about Eli Manning and Peyton Manning having their own broadcast for Monday Night Football. It's going to be over on ESPN. It's going to be not the main, ESPN channel, but it's going to be the Monday Night Football Megacast, which is going to be airing on ESPN2. Now, Peyton Manning and I'm assuming Eli struck a deal with ESPN to broadcast on here for the next 3 seasons for 10 games of each of those seasons. There's no host announced just yet, so I'm assuming they're probably going to have a host on there to help them out a little bit. But also, like, there's a couple things when I read about this that I really liked, and I think I may be even tuning in more on this than compared to the main Monday Night Football channel, is the fact that when I read the quote from the ESPN CEO or whoever signed the contract, so the reason why they want to bring both Mannings on was basically to give the viewers a different outlook and a different feel to watching the game. So like that you're sitting at the bar watching the game with a couple of your buddies, or you're at home with your friends rooting on your other your favorite teams or whatnot. And like some of us obviously that have kids can't go out to the bars or whatever and experience that feeling or get that feeling. So I think both guys aren't dumb. I know the memes are out there about both of them, but let's be honest, the memes are out there about all sports athletes. And definitely Peyton, one of the smartest quarterbacks ever to play the game. Eli, goofy face and all. I think it's going to be a fun show to watch. I'm sure they're going to talk, X's and O's, but I'm sure they're also going to bust on each other about when they were 12 years old, how Eli bounced the ball off his head and Peyton Manning intercepted or some stupid shit like that. You know what I mean? And also, the other aspect of the show that they're going to do is they're also going to have some celebrities and other sports figures to join them, which, again, it gives that at the bar type feel with friends. Now, I wonder, though, the only thing I wonder is why they're doing this. Are they doing this to see how popular it will be? And if it is popular enough, will they move this style of broadcast over to the main one on ESPN? Maybe, obviously not this year, but maybe next year. Because there was a lot of times watching Monday Night Football that the broadcast got boring, especially with Booger McFarland. Jesus, he's stupid. We make fun of the Mannings about how dumb they look. This dumbass, I could not stand him. I had him muted a few times. But I really think this is going to be a fun experience to watch. And as far as the MegaCast, which is what they're calling it, they're supposed to debut at the first 3 weeks of this season. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm definitely excited for it. I think it's going to be fun. And even though it's on ESPN2, I don't think we're going to have Marshawn Lynch talking about how he has to go take a dump. It's definitely a good time to be a Philly fan this past week or so. Well, I should say a Philly sports fan, because the next segment is a Philadelphia Eagles, Philadelphia Flyers loaded segment as we talk about some of the moves that both the Eagles and the Flyers have done. Now, obviously, with the Flyers, free agency started, if you're listening right now, started yesterday, Wednesday. And I'll tell you what, a lot of moves that they even did before that with the trades and everything, I'm liking it. I'm not saying we're winning the cup, but at least they're not going to be going into next season with the same wash, rinse, repeat type thing, and that's what it felt like this past season. I know a lot of people want to blame the, COVID and all that stuff. It was the same team before COVID too. The only thing that really changed was our one defenseman retired, who really helped Provy off. But this coming season, some of the moves that the Flyers did was that they acquired Cam Atkins from the Blue Jackets in exchange for Jacob Voracek. We all kind of knew this was coming, especially when rumors started to come out that the Flyers were going to leave him unprotected for the Seattle Krakens, however you say their name, expansion draft. Obviously, they didn't take him, and there's still some questions about their draft strategy. Why it was definitely underwhelming, to say the least. This trade, obviously was just a salary dump. They from what I saw number wise, it looked like we saved about $2 or $3 million this year, but the Blue Jackets actually save in the long run because Voracek only has 3 years left on his contract, where Atkins has 4 years left. The other move that the Flyers did, and I know I'm going to destroy his name here, but was they acquired defenseman Rasmus Ristolainen from the Sabres in exchange for our first-round draft pick, Robert Hagg, and our own second-round pick in 2023. The reason why I like this move, I know a lot of people are like, well, he's not as good as he used to be, this and that, the other thing. If you look at his overall ranks, stats-wise, he's 4th among all NHL defensemen in hits. That was one of the biggest things I was screaming about all last year. We weren't physical enough. You know, I know we had to trade away Gudis because he was old and, you know, just wasn't the same player as he used to be. But just, you know, Robert Hagg, he was definitely one of the bigger hitters on our team, but that was it. You know, like, we needed some physicality back on this team and show that we're not going to get pushed around no more. The other reason why I also like the Atkinson trade, and I believe we signed Yandel today. Both those guys used to play with Kevin Hayes and were coached by Alain Vigneault at some point in their career. So they all know each other, which obviously chemistry is a big thing. They know how to play, you know, alongside of each other. So I think this is definitely going to help get that going. We're not going to have, you know, many games where we're only getting 1 or 2 goals a game, and we're not going to give up a lot of goals like we were last year. The other one that was not that surprising as well, the other trade, was that we traded Shane Gostisbehere to the Coyotes, basically again as a salary dump, because we traded Gostisbehere, a second-round pick in next year's draft, and a 7th-round pick in next year's draft, where we got nothing back from Arizona. So obviously that was a salary dump. I like Ghost, but he's been on a decline ever since his rookie year. You know, so he got that big contract, never performed up to the contract, and I'm okay with them doing a salary dump there, because now, you know, you got Carter Hart and Travis Sanheim up for extensions. We got to sign those 2 guys. I'm not giving up on Carter Hart yet. I just think he needs to get back to his core, you know, studies and how he approached the game. I don't know, you know, was him losing the backup goalie that we had when he first came up, he became real close with, was that the factor why he had such a decline this past season? Also came out that he stopped going to his sports therapist. Maybe he needs to go back to that. You know, he's a young kid, a lot of pressure on him, but the tools are there. We've seen the skills. I think he'll be fine. We just need to find a good replacement, maybe even a replacement that could take a little bit more starts away from him than Brian Elliott did, who signed in Tampa Bay just today. Just today. That's the only other spot I think that we need to address is the backup goalie / starter. You know, maybe we bring a goalie in that pushes Carter Hart for the starting position. Across the street from Flyers Arena, Wells Fargo, we got the Philadelphia Eagles. Rumors coming out late last week and earlier this week that the Eagles are the team best set up to trade for Deshaun Watson. Texans came out, said they are actively looking to take trade offers and see what they could get, and are willing to trade Deshaun Watson as long as it's a fair price. And their fair price, and I'm quote, I read this, so I'll quote, 3 first-round picks and starting caliber players. Deshaun Watson may be a good player, maybe a good quarterback, and just maybe he'll be found not guilty on all these charges that still are ongoing. I am sorry, I don't care who you are. No player is worth the 3 first-round picks. No player. At most, 2 first-round picks. And then on top of that, you want a starting caliber player. For Eagles to pull off this trade, obviously they have to give 2 of their first rounds next year, plus a following year having the first round, and probably have to put Jalen Hurts in there because they're going to want a quarterback back. You don't give up Miles Sanders because who else is going to step up like he plays? You're not going to give up Devontae Smith or Jalen Reagor. Travis Fulgham is not enticing enough, I think, for the Texans to do that. Even Zach Ertz, yeah, he's a starting caliber player, but he's not what he used to be. So I don't think Philly will pull it off. I hope Philly doesn't pull it off, because in your aspect too is you give up those 3 first-round draft picks, you're setting yourself back 5-6 seasons easily. It's already proven that if you miss on a first-round draft pick, you're already, especially if it's a quarterback, you're setting yourself back 10 seasons. And we see that with Carson. We just maybe, we don't know if Jalen Hurts is gonna live up to what some people think he could play as. So there's a lot of question marks, and if he misses, yeah, we're set back 5 years because of Carson Wentz trade and us drafting him. Now, the other signing that happened this past week was we finally got our second cornerback to start alongside Darius Slay, Steven Nelson. I like this move. Now, granted, Travis Fulgham torched him last year when he was on the Steelers. But other than that game, he's had some good seasons with Kansas City and the Steelers. And this also puts Avonte Maddox, I believe, where he is more suitable, and that's the nickelback. So with this signing, I think our defense definitely got a lot better. It may not be the big sexy signing that will put your defense over the top, but as a collective, I think it helps our defense. And a good defense takes a lot of pressure off of an offense, especially with a young quarterback like Jalen Hurts. So both seasons, the Eagles and the Flyers, definitely going to be exciting. Going to be interesting. It's either going to go really good for both teams or really bad for both teams. Last week was BKFC 19. And being that this is our Combat Corner segment, which is sponsored by Bet Angles, live scores, odds, and the best expert picks every day. Start winning today at betangles.com. There was a lot of news that came out of the pay-per-view, and this one here, I'm really excited for it, is Bec Rawlings re-signed with Bare Knuckle. I was wondering when she would. She fought out her contract with BKFC, ended up signing with Bellator to give the MMA career one last try, and was average, just like she was in UFC. She went 1-1. I don't know if she was released or she fought out her contract there, but she ended up, like I said, re-signed with BKFC. She's undefeated in bare knuckle after going 3-0 with wins over Alma Garcia, Cecilia Flores, and Britton Hart. And we'll talk about Britton Hart in a second. But I think this will see really how good that 3-0 record is, because her last bare knuckle fight, I believe, was last year, so like 2020, maybe late 2019, and the women's division in bare knuckle wasn't as strong as it is now. You look at the women's division right now, you have Paige Van Zandt, which again I'll talk about her in a second, Pearl Gonzalez, and Rachel Ostovich, sorry about that. Before, when Beck was first in bare knuckle, you really didn't have anybody. She was the name. She was the face of that division. Now you have at least 3, and I'm going to throw Brandon Hart in there, 4 known names to help build that division up. Now, as of right now, she has no opponents booked, but the thinking is that she's going to be fighting in October, October 22nd. The fight I would love to see there is her and Britain Hart. When she fought Britain Hart, I'll tell you what, Britain Hart showed a lot of heart. I mean, she did get pieced up by Beck Rollins, but she didn't back down. And Britain Hart's last 2 fights, I believe it was, showed a lot of improvement in her boxing, a lot of improvement in her movement and everything. And I think this would be a hell of a match to, a hell of a rematch, I should say, to bring Beck Rollins back. And even though I'm going to go with my girl Beck, I would not put it past Britain with the upset. So hopefully that happens in October. So kind of to review Bare Knuckle 19, BKFC 19. Right off the bat, I did not like any of the boxing circus they had. Basically, they had a bunch of YouTubers and TikTokers with boxing gloves on to fight, and it just looked like a schoolyard fight. You know, I'm paying to see professionals fight, especially when they have a rapper, Blueface, I think his name is, get jumped by an audience member and then him punch him. Like, I hope this is not the route bare knuckle boxing is going, BKFC, because it will ruin the league or the company. Stick with what you've been doing. You've been gaining support. You've been gaining well-known sponsors compared to BKFC 1. Don't deviate from what you've been doing. As far as the fighters, though, Abdil Velasquez, who was one of the early beginners in BKFC, I like him. He only had one fight that really turned me off from him, and that was when David Feldman took away his winnings or his purse because all he did was run. I think he's done. You know, he's fought 7 times out of the 19 pay-per-views, and 2 of his last 3 fights ended in TKO, and this last one was pretty brutal. I think, you know, the evolution of BKFC fighting, I think, is finally catching up to him, and he can't just do it just raw power. Now you need talent. You need to evolve with the other fighters, and I'm just not seeing it with him. I could see him being done in the BKFC. Taylor Jenkins was the Killer Bee fighter. This is the second time I saw her fight, and this time around, I mean, she just ran through Cassie Robb. So I would like to see a step up in competition from her, or, you know, for her. And again, maybe a Britain Hart, or even a Pearl Gonzalez. You know, maybe a Pearl Gonzalez, because she's new to the sport, still learning the ins and outs. And maybe Britain Hart may overwhelm her. So they're my 2 teams that I would like to see fight Taylor Jenkins. And then, like I said before, with Britain Hart and Beck Rollins, has gotten a lot better since the Rollins loss. I would love to see the rematch. And, you know, she knows how to sell a fight. Like, she was a good trash talker at the press conferences. Wasn't a Conor McGregor, you know, disrespectful towards Khabib's father. You know, Conor's just a scumbag anymore. But she definitely knows how to sell fights. And then the last thing is I want to touch on is Paige Van Zandt. Now, she's 0-2 since debuting in bare knuckle boxing. But this fight compared to her last, she did look a lot better. She still has a ways to go, but did look a lot better. The only thing with her I did not like was, in my opinion, the disrespect she showed by storming off when the cards were read that Pearl won. I had Pearl winning 2 rounds to 1. I don't know how Paige saw it. I haven't seen any like statements or anything on it, you know, from her, but definitely had Rachel winning that fight. There's a UFC fight card this week. I may do a live tweeting, but there's no real fights on there except for Uriah Hall that really jumped out to me. So I may tune in, and it's usually those cards you gotta watch out for. Usually those cards are the ones that turn out to be the barn burners. So to find our Twitter accounts, make sure you guys head over to staytunesports.net. On the right hand side is all our Twitter accounts. Just click them and you're able to follow us. Facebook, click the like button, all that stuff, as well as our merch tab up top. And don't forget to go visit www.buymeacoffee.com/stsports to help support the show, so that way we could do cool giveaways or other things like that for you guys. So I think that's actually going to be it for this week, though. It was good to be back. Got recharged. I'm ready for the weekend now. Make sure you guys head over to YouTube on Friday night, 9 p.m., 3YTV for the Stay Tuned Sports Podcast Truck Series. It's going to be a good race. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a chippy race, especially being the last race before getting cut down to 7. So make sure you guys tune in there. Till next week, it's your good friend Jimbo, signing out.